Kelly. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Jen. Hi, inspiring souls. Happy September.
Happy September. It's a good month. I have to say, one of my favorites, always.
Me
Every
too.
year.
It's
Yeah.
that things start moving again, right? It's
Yeah.
that end of summer. Whoop, it's a kick over into that real fall energy. Um, but I thought we'd start off and pick up, Jen, from the messages from Spirit that we had around the mid-month of August before, and pick up now that we've just stepped into this Virgo energy.
Okay, so mid-month, in the mid-month check-in, we talked about things winding up and us initiating that winding up of energies in our life. So tasks, projects, maybe intentions, things like that, looking at our intentions again and maybe seeing what fits, what doesn't fit anymore as we grow and expand our intentions and our purposes and our meaning and everything is going to shift and is going to change. And this is why it's so cool to revisit often, right? Like what we need,
Yeah.
want, and desire because, and what we love, because it changes and it grows with us. And so there's a lot of that energy that we were talking about and encouraging towards the end of August. Moving into September, though, as I said, it's going to carry forward. And there's going to be kind of this almost sense of urgency that we feel. I don't really feel or pick up on the fact that spirit wants us to feel urgent around it or feel stressed around it. However, we might pick up on these sort of like, oh, I really feel like I need to get this done and I need to get it done now. And I don't really know why now rather than 6 months ago. But if you have projects and things that you've started or items on your to-do list that are unfinished from several months ago, especially, it is time to wrap that up. And
Wind it
when
up.
I wind it up, because when I was checking in with spirit around this too, the messaging really comes back to creating space. And I know that this was one of the biggest themes. We have talked about this at length this year in 2022. I feel like even back at the very like beginning of January when we did like the
Mhm.
yearly projection, creating space was a big component. And I feel that these last 3 months, no, 4 months, September, October, November, December of the calendar year, and you're going to talk about astrologically and the astrological year and everything and how this affects those energies. But even just in the calendar year, as 2022 wraps up, I think that these next 4 months are really going to be a lot about creating space and expansion for the beginning of 2023 to come around. So Spirit's encouraging us to continue to wrap things up, wrap up those projects. I keep seeing this like to-do list. So for anybody that's watching this that is a list maker and really gets that satisfaction of, crossing things off or checking the boxes, make that list. Maybe make like a big long one, like even if it's as small as like, oh, I need to paint those baseboards that never got painted, or I need to, look at just little projects that are taking up energetic space in your home or in your life. They need to be checked and be done. So that was kind of one of the biggest things that I felt moving into September, or at least I guess not necessarily the biggest, but one of the most prevalent, I suppose, most current energies because it's there, it's active already as of mid-August. But the other thing you and I were talking about before we signed on here was the anxiety that's being kind of flip-flopped around in our minds right now. So Kylie and I felt like it was really important to talk about this and touch on this. And I know that there's always a reason or a kind of some backstory when you go through the calendar, and we're going to see maybe why these energies are so present or like what's affecting them. But you and I and other people that we know in our lives have experienced this over the last couple of weeks where it's a very like back and forth um dialogue in our head. It's the itty bitty shitty committee kind of coming in, but it's these very like anxious, low vibrational thoughts and scenarios that are kind of playing out in our minds sometimes. Maybe especially in situations where we feel vulnerable or situations where we feel like we're, not, it wasn't best planned or things changed at the last minute. Remember, another one of the themes for 2022 was a plan for plans to change. And we've experienced that a lot this year. And so
Yes.
with that sometimes creates anxiety and our brains are trying to make sense of stuff. But if you are at any point feeling, especially now, but moving into the beginning of September and moving into through mid-September as well, this sort of dialogue, this kind of back and forth of feeling the anxiety, but uh, I, I'll give my example. Okay. How would I just go? Because I feel like that it's hard to explain unless you're telling like really the
Yeah.
story. So for me, it was more of this whole scenario playing out in my head of fear, like fear based, like, oh, for sure. We were camping and it was like, oh, for sure, you know, someone's going to come along. And I don't know. Actually, at one point, legitimately, we were in the tent and I was like, I feel like, what if a car, like someone was drunk in their car driving around the park, the camping, ground, and they like drove into our tent. Like, who thinks of stuff like that? But like those are the
Catastrophizing thoughts,
it
aren't
it
they?
was
Yeah.
very, very much, that's a really good word for it.
Mhm.
And on our road trip to the camping grounds, like I was, imagining like what would happen if we were in a car accident and stuff. And it was like these things that were coming in like very like unconsciously. Like I certainly wasn't finding them with my conscious mind thinking about it. It was just all of a sudden it would kind of show up. Anyways, all that to say,
Coming in, quick
very,
thoughts
very,
coming
yeah,
in. Yeah.
very irrational. But the interesting part of it, and this is what I've experienced, I think you've experienced this too, is that my vibration was never really in a low place.
Mm-mm.
So it was very confusing for me.
Very
So
mental, right? Very mental
very,
energy. Yeah.
yes, so up in my head. And it wasn't like I felt connected. I felt reassured. As soon as it would kind of come in, I was like, well, that's weird. And that's creepy. And like, why would I think of that? But it wasn't this like anxious struggle. I didn't feel the anxiety in my body ever. It was just like these
Huge.
anxious thoughts.
Mhm.
And so when I obviously, when we got back from our trip and I was talking to you and I was telling you about it, and you were kind of piecing together some of the energies and the astrological events and things that are playing into that. So I'm excited for you to kind of share all of that. But yeah, it just feels like if you are experiencing this kind of push pull in the energy up in your head, there is a reason.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we can ride it out and we can let it. And I think that from my understanding, you're going to talk about this. I
Mhm.
think you had mentioned that it's not like a quick wrap up thing. Like it's probably going to be a residual thing for the next little
6 months.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yay. So
Yeah.
we'll be very conscious and very adamant on, staying grounded and staying present. And I think my biggest thing, the way that I dealt with it without any kind of understanding as to like maybe that was kind of normal based off of the energies, I didn't judge. I just sort of let it go. And I was very
Oh,
aware of the
wow.
fact, like I said, that I didn't feel it through my body. I didn't feel it like in my chest. It wasn't ever grounded into my existence. I wasn't embodying the anxiety,
Yeah.
which I normally would do. I just was allowing it to kind of let go. And I feel like that's kind of what we're being called to do moving through September, is any kind of conflict or anything that's kind of happening within our minds, especially. We're just being asked to breathe through it, to move through it, movement coming in as well, and to just let it go and let it be. Yeah.
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 And Jen, I think you said just such a powerful thing there. You didn't feel the anxiety in your body.
Mhm.
And that's when we know that it is air energy that is
Right.
taking up that mental space,
Yeah.
right? When we are in constant rumination. And I'll go through everything that's being activated for that at the
Yeah.
moment to understand every single air sign is being activated powerfully, which actually started on August the 20th.
Okay.
And what happened was Mars, the planet that governs how we take action, right? And in the highest expression is we take action with consciousness and motivation and responsibility and care, right?
Mhm.
The lower vibration is we take action aggressively, impulsively, right? It's a manic energy, is that very low vibration of Mars, and intelligent action, conscious action is the highest expression of it.
Yeah.
Now, this is what's happening. What started on August the 20th and will remain until March 2023 is Mars has entered into Gemini,
Mhm.
the, I think, self-awareness energy of our 12 states of consciousness. And normally, Mars would only spend 2 months here.
Okay.
But because there is a retrograde happening, Mars is going to travel through Gemini, retrograde back through Gemini, and then move out of Gemini again. So we literally are having a replay of consciousness.
So interesting.
So doesn't it make sense that old things, old fears that are coming up to be released, they're flashing through the mind. It's a fleeting thought. It's a, oh my God, what if? Frantic, I think was the word you used earlier, that kind of frantic energy of thoughts and flight coming in. So what we need to do to balance air is really root into our earth energies.
Love it.
And, you know, when we think about our earth energies being Taurus, I value self-responsibility. Virgo, which is the energies we are in at the moment, which is self-accountability. Yeah. Okay? And the other earth sign being Capricorn, which is self-sovereignty. So isn't it interesting that energetically you were like, wind things up?
Yeah.
Complete. Create space.
Yeah.
Clearing the energy physically, mentally, and emotionally. And these two energies play off each other so beautifully, because when the air is activated so much and there's this frantic, almost manic level of thought, if we embody the earth energy, we get organized.
Yeah.
And we can channel that kinetic energy of action and motivation and that real Mars, how I take action in life. We can get very organized, very systematic, channel that energy into doing the tasks that actually benefit, support, and create space for us, as opposed to keeping that energy maniacal in the mind and not actually creating anything physical with it. I think we'll pop over to the calendar and just have a look at this in the colors, right, of the earth and air that's playing out at the moment. Okay, so we start the beginning of the month, just coming off that Virgo new moon. So we've stepped into Virgo season. We've had this beautiful new moon to ask us and really bring into, look at our Virgo here, our self-accountability. And this is the time of the year where I become, let's just look where we've been. The start of the astrological year was here in Aries. All of the commitments, the I am commitments that we made to ourselves are now at a place of I become and I embody. And not only that is I am self-accountable for feeling my feelings, monitoring what it is that I am thinking, being conscious of what I am co-creating, and holding that within what I value and taking my self-responsibility for it. And that's, as we know, the first part of the astrological year on the lower part of the wheels of consciousness is where we clear out all of the gunk. Yeah. All of those false beliefs. So it's very interesting now that things are shooting in and out of our mind, old thoughts, old energies, but we're not embodying that. No, we're just, it really is a superficial, flighty energy that's around at the moment. Mars, the planet of how we take action, is activating the I think self-awareness energy of our psyche. The moon moves into Aquarius. And Aquarius is hold your note, harmonize, hold the note that we want to be in. Okay? And also at that same time, Mercury, the planet that again activates our mind, the messenger from the gods, begins to retrograde in Libra. So here we have these three really fascinating energies, all air-driven, of I think, I balance, I harmonize. So if we look at it as through self-awareness, self-validation, we create soul transformation. Okay? So really thinking about the Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius energy that is in this high activation. What do we do to balance that? We balance it with our earth energies. Okay? Self-responsibility. What is it that I value? And what am I responsible for to prioritize those values? Jen, you said it's don't make a date for coffee if you know you don't want to go and have coffee.
This is a big theme too that spirit's kind of bringing in, or just like the energies are acknowledging, is we are making these soul contracts day in and day out. And we're now stepping into this place, like we are powerful women beings who are stepping into creating these soul contracts with ourselves, instead of like, dishing out our energy to everybody. We've got this kind of accountability, we've got this responsibility now, we know what our energy is, we've got these beautiful healthy boundaries, we've been working at this, this group in Secure Ascension. And so what we're kind of being offered is this opportunity to like not just say no. We talked about that a lot this summer. When you say no, you're really saying yes to something else. So let's be okay with saying no, and define what it is that we want to do. But these little contracts that we make with ourselves, you run into somebody damn well that you are not going to go for coffee with them. Don't say, let's grab a coffee, we should do this, we should do that. Or making these little like air-based commitments. Right?
Oh, that's perfect. Air-based commitments. I love that.
You're making it with that air energy, with your mind, and you're not embodying that commitment. That's not something that you actually want. It's out of your, maybe your boundaries. Or, I mean, obviously the coffee thing is just an example, but that is a big theme that I'm seeing in a lot of my readings right now. And moving into September being like a big, like, let's just nip this in the bud. Like, let's just stop sugarcoating things. Just say hi. Like, why do we have to, or like, what, I would love to, but I'm super busy. So, we'll see what happens. But
here's another thing that's coming to me too, when kids going back to school, work ramping up again, saying yes and yes, like volunteering to things that you don't want to do.
Yes.
Feeling that energy pick up at work and saying yes out of obligation, as opposed to, does this really support me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because what happens when we say yes, later we have to go back and say no, because we will, I get the whole like doing it anyways. I get that. But that I feel like is an old energy for us. We're not going to do it anyways. So why are we even saying yes in the first place, and then have to backtrack and, I don't know. Anyways, it just feels like let's just be honest with ourselves. Yeah.
Self-responsibility, self-accountability, self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
Right? That is what the air energy is. That is going to
the earth energy.
Sorry, that is what the earth energy is. And that is what's going to balance all of those. I love what you just said, air commitments.
Yeah.
Where they're not in our heart what we want to be doing. We're doing it out of, we think, obligation, maybe people pleasing, whatever is driving it. We need to fully ground into that earth energy. Taurus, I value and I take self-responsibility for it. Yeah. Virgo, as I do that, I become what I value, and I am self-accountable to myself to honor that. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, as we stand in that earth energy, is I know what I want, and I choose to meet my needs first. That is self-sovereignty. So these two air and earth energies, and if we go back to our calendar, just look at the amount of yellow and green.
There is a lot. What I'm noticing too is that the three, there's like 3 or 4 different, like 3 or 4 days in a row of air energy, preceded by 2 days of earth energy.
Consistent. It's a consistent. So, and imagine that as that's a wave, right? Yeah. Air energy, I need to ground. Air energy, I need to ground. Air energy, I need to ground.
But what's cool about it is that it's ground first, so that you're stable in the air energy each time. It's not like air energy, then ground. It's like ground, and then there's the air, and then ground again, and there's the air. So it's like a very stable, there's opportunity here, I think, for a very stable experience through this, right? Where it could be that chaotic, like, forceful energies of God knows where these thoughts are coming from kind of thing. Or it can be, we take that responsibility and we move through the
and how many
before. Yeah,
exactly. And how many times do we say emotional growth is through our grounding, and spiritual expansion is through how we change the
Yes.
narrative in the internal head. So
Yes.
every month, and as we mentioned before, right, we are now, after 6 months of the astrological year, becoming this version of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity to ground and expand each time we choose to be conscious through, oh, I'm not letting my mind run away with me.
Mm-hmm.
So as an overall, for the whole month, this are three predominant themes or three predominant guide rails to keep us on track. Number one, watch what you say. Right? With this much air activated, we need to be very conscious of what we're saying. Mm-hmm. If you get an inflammatory email, don't respond immediately. If you have conflict, plan a time to discuss things. If you feel that movement of grounding to, I'm right up in my head and somebody needs to hear this, somebody needs to pay for this, just cool the jets, right? Yeah. And that has a lot to do with two of the energies that are happening this month. One, we're starting the month with Mars already in retrograde in Gemini, which we know, as I said earlier, isn't a 2-month stay. It's a 6-month stay, and it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. Another good reason to wind things up. Mm-hmm. Next, very important guide rail for the month, or actually for the next 6 months as we go through this period, is witness what is illusion. Mm. There is so much misinformation, ill information, untrue information that may raise its head over the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. So using our earth energy, what are you listening to? Now is not the time to be listening to true crime podcasts endlessly. Mm-hmm. Right? Now is not the time to have the news channel on in your house from morning till evening. Not that I think many people within our community are doing that, but literally this is witness what is illusion, even in yourself when thoughts are coming up and, like you were saying, catastrophizing. What if the car runs into the tent? Acknowledge it, let it go. It's illusion. They are fleeting illusions that are coming up to be released. And the third guide rail for this month is wait before you jump into action. Yeah. And the reason that I'm saying that is because when Mars is in such a predominant place of mind activation and air energy for such a long and extended period of time, mm-hmm. we can be irrational. I was trying to sugarcoat that, but it's we can be reactionary. We can be very, very mentally focused, not grounded, and very reactionary. Yeah. Cool the jets, be responsive. Yeah. So just imagine the mind this month just as a spin-off of our inner child. It's going to need a lot of care. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the thoughts that come up might be old fears. Mm-hmm. And as we say, this isn't a negative energy where it's like, oh, I feel it. It's like, no, it's kind of illusionary and I'm seeing it and I'm seeing through it. Mm-hmm. Make more sense? Very much. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I think we'll just go now through week by week, a little summary of what's happening. Perfect. That first week, ground, acknowledge, and release energy. That's what's happening from the 4th to the 10th. We start the week in that Sagittarius energy of motivation, being that fire energy. Capricorn energy, structure, organize, strategize, get organized. And then hold your emotional note as we move into that beautiful Pisces full moon. And I just want to take a moment to talk about this full moon. This is the turning point of the halfway through the astrological year. The Pisces full moon is where we release illusion. Okay? And Pisces in its highest expression is spiritual knowledge, spiritual consciousness, spiritual awareness. In its lowest form, it is delusion, illusion, addiction, numbing out, not being grounded. So as we lead up to this Pisces full moon, that week in particular, it's important for us to ground, hold our emotional note, because Mercury is also going retrograde that week, activating the mind. And when it begins in Libra, it's really weighing things up. We start the month in that real weigh up energy. What have I got to organize? What have I got to do? What have I got to implement? What is important to me? Okay. As we come off that full moon energy and move into the following week from the 11th to the 17th, a little pause that week as we come off that full moon energy. Again, as you noted earlier, Jen, we need to ground before we get mentally heightened towards the end of the week. So being very conscious of grounding, committing to grounding, in fact, at the beginning of the week, and not allowing the mind to get away from us towards the end of the week. Okay. The third week, the 18th to the 24th, it's a crescendo week. Look what we've got going on there. We start coming off that mental energy over the weekend, the 16th, 17th, into Monday, the 18th. This is where we need to drop into our inner child, really drop into that little inner child and say, what do you need? What do you value? How do I support you in all of that earth energy that you're seeking, little one? How do I make you feel safe and secure? Because as we head towards the end of the week, we have the fall equinox, all about balance. Remember, Libra is the one astrological consciousness that isn't represented by an animal. It is represented by a tool. This is where we have to, I love what you said earlier, not make air commitments and literally ground into what is balance for us.
Yeah.
The very next day, we move into that Virgo energy, and it is like, and I am full self-accountable.
Nice.
So do you see how this time of year, when we come into September, it's a real maturing point. It's a real mental and physical maturation point for us, where we move through those 12 states of consciousness.
Yeah.
And then in the very last week, from the 25th right through until October the 1st, we come into that beautiful Libra new moon energy, balance, balance, balance. I'd really suggest in this week to do a ritual. It's that halfway point of the year, letting go of what we don't need, really clearly defining what it is mentally and emotionally that it is that we love, want, need, and desire. And then we end that week off with that beautiful rest and relax energy of Scorpio. And if we look at Scorpio, right, it is the self-regulation and transformation. And to me, that is what sums up September. It is heightening all of our air and mental energies, giving us the opportunity to ground deeply so we can stand in our strongest emotional transformational space, which is the energies that we're about to move into in October. So as you can see, it's a very transformative month, very transformative. And I would even go as far as to say that this is a pivotal turning point in the year. It is also the start of a 6-month journey of mental, informational, and illusionary old energies to completely fade away.
And with awareness, all of that is just so much easier. If it's happening anyways, we might as well be conscious and aware to it, which we've all been practicing for all of this time together. And it really does make a big difference, right? We don't have to then embody all of the things. They don't become settled within. They don't settle. right?
No,
Just influence.
it moves through, and that's what energy does. When we are in divine peace and we are standing in that space of divine order, energy moves through us like a spiral.
Yeah.
It doesn't embody in us.
Yeah.
What embodies within us is what we love, want, need, and desire.
Amazing. Yeah.
So ground, 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 and ground some more.
Yes.
And just pay attention to what is illusion and the thoughts that are running through the mind in the month. And in the middle of the month, we will see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget to check in on Sundays. We'll see you in your inbox, where we'll be doing all of the affirmation cards and the inner child cards to support the energies of each of this week.
Amazing. Thank you, Kylie, so much for sharing with us and sharing yourself. And thank you guys for watching. See you in your inbox.
Thanks, Jen. Bye, ladies. Mwah.
Bye.